For these $300 million cruise ships, this is the end of the line.
Gemi söküm testlerine hoş geldiniz.
Because of the pandemic, Carnival, Costa, and Pullmantur cruise lines have all sent ships to Western Turkey for demolition. Here, they'll be ripped to shreds deck by deck and sold for parts.
Yani geminin diyebilirim ki tamamını geri dönüştürüyoruz diyebilirim.
But dismantling a ship that holds 2,000 passengers, well, that's
one of the most dangerous jobs in the world.
Shipbreakers saw off massive sections of the hull and moved them overhead. There's millions of dollars worth of parts at stake, but any misstep could mean injury or hurting the environment. And it's only gotten harder, with lots of new arrivals. We take you inside the yard, turning these floating hotels into this. Before the pandemic, the Aliaga shipbreaking yards were pretty quiet. Normally, the 22 yards only demolished a few dozen cargo ships a year. But when the pandemic wrecked the cruising industry, more and more cruise ships ended up here. After losing more than $4 billion in the second quarter of 2020, Carnival Cruise Line decided it was more affordable to sell its old ships for parts than try to keep them operating. Aliaga will be the last stop for Carnival's inspiration, imagination, and fantasy ships.
Şu arkamda görmüş olduğunuz cruise gemileri özellikle belki bir 5 yıl, 10 yıl daha kadar çalışabilirdi. Yaklaşık 5 yıl, 10 yıl daha çalışabilecek durumda olan gemilerini Aliaga'ya gönderdiler.
Captains navigate the cruise liners from the US, UK, and Italy. They coordinate with the harbor master to beach ships.
Then the bow front of the vessel is grounded on the shore while the stern is still afloat.
We plan how we cut the vessels together with our technical department.
Then 2,500 shipbreakers set out to remove any valuable material.
There are very expensive navigational equipments at bridge side.
Working one deck at a time, crews take out all the furniture, mostly by hand. We're talking everything from chairs, tables, and pianos, to light fixtures and beds.
I can easily say that cruise vessels are the hardest vessel type to dismantle because, there are hundreds of rooms on board.
Then they move on to amenities, dismantling gyms, pools, and theaters. Stripping walls, windows, floors, and handrails is next. This is where lots of saws and blowtorches come in.
Workers risk daily falling from great heights, inhaling toxic gases during cutting operations, being hit by falling objects, and the blowtorch comes with fire hazards.
They are working in very high degrees under the sun in summer times, or they are working in very extreme conditions in winter time. Bu iş ILO'yu biliyorsunuz. ILO'nun listesine göre dünyanın en zorlu işi.
Since October 2020, 2 workers have died from falling objects.
The vessel lies on water, so there is no any way for the ambulance to reach in case of emergency situations.
Despite these injuries, working conditions in Aliaga are better than those of the world's biggest shipbreaking yards.
In South Asia, in Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan, where most of the end-of-life vessels end up every year. Dozens of people die or get injured in the process.
Those yards in South Asia use the dangerous gravity method.
That is dropping huge blocks into the water onto the beach.
But in Turkey, workers lift ship parts with a massive crane.
Which has a 2,000-ton capacity in our shore side, and we cut big blocks at the vessel, and by using this huge crane, we take these big blocks at our secondary cutting zone.
Aliaga hasn't always had the safest yards. In the late 90s, Turkey was just as bad as South Asia. But in 2002, Greenpeace released a report that revealed the unsafe work conditions here, and the world took notice.
As a reaction to this international criticism, things have improved considerably.
Things got even safer in 2018, when some Aliaga yards started complying with the European Union shipbreaking regulation. That's why Carnival chose 2 yards here for its end-of-life ships.
8 tane firma Avrupa Birliği kriterleriyle ilgili sertifika lisansları var bunların.
Those EU guidelines have also raised the standards for environmental practices. Every cruise ship has dozens of toxins hidden inside. Things like asbestos in pipes, heavy metals in paints, biological hazards from sewage tanks, radioactive material from gauges, and the list goes on. Left unchecked, they can seep into the soil, beach, and water, where they've destroyed local marine habitats and water systems around shipbreaking yards before. But because of these new regulations, Aliaga got newer and better drainage systems and cement floors in the secondary cutting area, so workers weren't cutting ship parts on open beach. They also got new oil booms for containing oil spills, a new waste management center for properly disposing of those toxins in the ship, and a better asbestos removal process.
Practices have been improved, but there are still concerns related to the long-term impact on the health of the workers due to exposure to toxic substances.
Nicola says many workers aren't aware of these risks, and the rest choose the job anyway because of the high pay.
Şu anda gemi söküm çalışan normal işçi abilerimizin almış olduğu ücretler yaklaşık $1500 seviyesinde ve bu da ciddi bir rakama tekabül ediyor Türkiye şartlarında. Eğitim yönünden çok fazla kendini geliştirme fırsatı bulamamış abilerin alabileceği gerçekten ciddi bir rakam.
After the ship is demolished, this is all that's left. While the whole process takes 6 months for a cargo ship, it takes a lot longer for a cruise ship.
Almost 1 year, maybe more.
Workers move everything pulled off the ships into separate piles: electronics, light fixtures, textiles, furniture, glass, and machinery.
Tabii diğer yolcu gemilerden çıkan ahşaptır, koltuktur, mutfak malzemeleridir. Bunlar da tekrar geri dönüştürülüyor. Kafeler, restoranlar, oteller.
Buyers interested in cruise memorabilia claim the life jackets, art, and maps from antique sellers. But what about all that metal?
Şimdi tabii bu gemiler burada sökülüyor. Sökülürken de bu malzemeler Yeni Foça'da bunların tamamı burada kesilen demir metal kısmı tekrar geri dönüştürülüp inşaat demiri vesaire demiri malzeme haline geliyor.
In 2020, OMIL estimates workers pulled over 1 million tons of steel off cruise ships here, and that'll all be recycled.
Recycling steel instead of mining the raw materials reduces definitely energy requirements and the carbon footprint.
Bu demiri madenlerden çıkartmak için mesela şu arkamda gördüğünüz gemi yaklaşık 30.000 ton. 30.000 ton demiri madenden çıkartmak için ne kadar büyük bir insan gücü, ne kadar büyük bir ticari yatırım gerektirdiğini düşünürsek bunun çöpe gitmesi ya da hani yok olup heba olup gitmesi dense biz burada onları alıp tekrar ekonomiye kazandırıyoruz.
It's estimated scrap metal from one ship could pull in around $4 million in profit for the Shipbreaking Association.
You can make good money because there are lots of things on board for second-hand sales.
Demolishing these bigger ships has led to larger profits and a growing workforce for Aliaga shipyards.
Sadece de pandemiden sonra kruz gemilerinin buraya gelip bizim kapasitemize %30 bir artış sağladı.
But as shipbreaking booms, it comes on the heels of a crumbling cruise industry.